the Friday Cocktail, presented by Anna Glavinsky.
And I'm joined on the line by Anna Doble, just in the nick of time, to talk about her book, which is about coming out and coming of age with a backdrop of 90s music. I think it's very visceral and contains a lot of details about what it really felt like to be at that age at that time. Anna, thank you for joining us. How are you doing this afternoon?
Hello, Anna. Lovely to be with you. Yeah, it's the 90s again, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the 90s nostalgia era is definitely coming back. In fact, Alanis Morissette was playing at the Mad Cool Festival in Spain, where we're based, the other day. And I was like, oh my God, I would literally give my right arm to go and see her. So your book, you know, is very sort of specific about your experiences, your emotions, set against sort of a wider backdrop of music. Why did you decide to write this book and frame it in such a way?
Well, I'm glad you say that because it is really personal. And the funny thing about it is it's a lot about Britpop and the mid-90s now being 30 years ago. We've seen Oasis, Pulp, Blur have all their comebacks in different ways. But actually, it's a pop book. It starts with Take That and E17 and Chesney Hawkes and the Spice Girls. So it's the way that music grabs you when you're young and becomes your soundtrack and follows you through your life, and how there comes a point, and maybe myself and yourself and some of your listeners have hit this point where they can hear a song again after 30 years perhaps, and it just takes them back in a way that nothing else could. No taste, no sight, just it's the sound of a song that plunges them back into a really important part of their coming of age.
It's so true. It's so true. And there's actually like a scientific study done about how people genuinely believe that the music from their sort of teenage era was the best music ever because of the way we emotionally associate with it. For you, what was it about the 90s? How would you describe it? You know, I know that you do in your book in a way that you can sell it to anyone who thinks that the 70s was better or that, you know, the 2000s were better or whatever. Bring us back with you.
Sure. I mean, I will always stand up for the 90s, but quite clearly I am biased. I was 16 in 1995, so it was the perfect time to be discovering music. And what I will say for the 90s is the range of music. So you could be into indie music, but also love pop, as I described just then. You would also maybe find your way into hip hop and dance music. Drum and bass was massive then. I went to lots of big nights in my teens and student days where I discovered, you know, rave music, dance music in a way that I wouldn't have known about before. So I feel like bands from all genres were given a place in the mid-90s. You saw in the UK acts like Tricky, acts like Corner Shop, acts like Skunk Anansie, as well as the kind of the bands we think of as very 90s, like the Spice Girls and like Oasis and Blur. It was a really good time to really swim around the different genres. So that's how I would stand up for the 90s.
And did you identify with one genre more than any others?
Well, I became an indie kid, so I'm looking at the discography now because at the back of the book, and it's called Connection is a Song, so it's named after an Elastica track. But I start with Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You. I find my way to dance music, Orbital, Halcyon and On, which I'm sure people all have danced to in Spanish bars over the years and just had that Ibiza moment with that kind of music. In the end, I guess I am an indie kid, so the middle of the book, the sort of heart of the book, is me discovering bands like, I guess, the Manic Street Preachers, The Verve, I'm looking here, Suede, Primal Scream. So I guess if I had to go onto a desert island with just one genre, it would be the guitar music that was sort of so central to the 90s. But there is so much more, isn't there? And that's why it's fun to go back to.
And do you think that wide genre of music reflected where you were at as a teenager at that time? You know, trying out different scenes, experimenting with different ways of being and personality, and ultimately, exactly as you're saying, coming of age, and also that sort of added pressure, if that's the right word, of coming out as well. You know, how did all that music and different influences identify with you at that time?
Yeah, I guess for me, what I loved about that time, and I mentioned Elastica, of course, is that there were women fronting bands, indie bands. So it wasn't like, I guess, pop music where there were lots of big icons to look up to. Madonna's in the book, clear icons of pop. But there were bands that were sort of doing the stuff that previously had been a more, inverted commas, male type setup. So Justine Frischmann from the band Elastica was like this cool girl in Doc Martens in a Fred Perry shirt, and somehow or another she was really feminine, but she had this kind of toughness to her. So I identified with that and thought, hang on a minute, this is good news. I don't have to wear that dress to the sixth form ball. I can wear what I want and I can be my type of girl. And I guess we had a really great time in the football sort of sphere in the 90s too. England doing really well and finally becoming a team that people could be proud of, rather than the sort of hooligan thing that went before. So I got really into football as well, and Italia 90, Euro 96 were just somehow coupled with really great music as well. We had New Order doing the song for Italia 90. And of course, later on, we had some amazing football anthems, Three Lions and stuff like that. So it became a time when you could be a bit more exploring, not just being a girl in the traditional sense, but a more tomboyish girl in my sense. So yeah, that is where I guess my confidence grew from, and my group of friends that all loved music as well. We explored all that together, and therefore you gain this confidence that allows you to discover yourself and be who you want to be.
And that's how it felt for you in the 90s. What would you say, or what do you reckon about teenagers now who are coming of age or wanting to discover themselves, different aspects of themselves? Do you think that they have the same sort of musical role models and variety that we had? Are there perhaps even more positive influences in music today, or would you say it's taken a step backwards? I have no idea. What's your take on it?
We could spend hours on this, Anna, couldn't we? But I would say the big positive is that even though I sort of lament the end of physical music, buying a CD or a record on a Saturday, streaming and the internet has allowed young music fans to explore far more widely and deeply than you could have ever afforded to. I don't know if your listeners remember that feeling of having like a tenner or just a kind of a very limited amount of money for music. And you had to choose, and often you were choosing based on the cover, weren't you? Whereas I guess now you can go off on a journey through algorithms, maybe, but through recommendations from friends. I've got, young people I know, teenagers that are in my life, who suddenly tell me, I found this great band. They're called The Velvet Underground. And I'm like, it's
what a discovery.
Yeah. So I think, and then obviously modern music, there's so much out there that I guess is harder to find in some respects because the charts aren't the way they used to be, or TV shows that we used to gather around to watch videos are not quite the same. But on the other hand, you can find a musician, an artist, a band that's so perfect for you just by finding a community online and following, if they like that band, then I'm going to like the band that they're influenced by, and so on and so forth. So I do think the discovery aspect of music is more wonderful than ever, actually.
And do you think sort of back in the 90s there, because it sounds like obviously it's very nostalgic, mostly positive what you're talking about, you're looking back with your rose tinted glasses, the fun that you had with your friends and the sticky dance floors and all the rest of it, which I think's changed a bit. I don't think young people go to clubs as much as we used to. But do you think there were any sort of negative sides to the music world, the party world in the 90s that have either got better now, or, just looking back at it and you think, actually, I might have enjoyed it at the time, but it probably wasn't so great?
I think it all comes down to, I guess, I grew up in a provincial small town. It wasn't unusual for like older men to sort of hover around the sort of teenage girls. And I think we live in a world now where perhaps that's less accepted, or the blokes behave themselves a bit more. I felt safe, I must say. I had a really close-knit friend circle and we would always look after each other. But I feel like when I speak to young women today, they are so aware of their rights and what's acceptable on a night out, even if they're very drunk and all those things, compared to perhaps we just sort of accepted that, you know, it came with the territory. If you were lurching around a marketplace at 2 a.m. trying to find a pizza shop, you know, that blokes would come up to and bother you a bit. So I think that's better now. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I hope it is better now.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, finally, I'd just like you to tell us a little bit about the book. You said it's a pop book. You know, we've talked about some of the things that come up into it, but what's it like? What's it read like?
Well, it's the paperback is in my hand, but for those listening, it's a pink paperback, and it's called Connection is a Song, coming up and coming out through the music of the 90s. It is, I hope, a really fun journey through the songs with me from being age 11 all the way to being 19. I have a lot of escapades involving cider, Marlboro Lights, jukeboxes, sticky dance floors, as you mentioned, and the music is absolutely wonderful. And I had such fun writing it because each time I wrote a chapter, I just reveled in the songs again. And I hope those that read it feel the same. And even if their decade is maybe the 70s or the 80s, that the way that music makes you feel is exactly the same and a sort of universal, wonderful thing.
Well, it sounds absolutely fantastic. And if you'd like to get your hands on it, you can find it on Amazon or the Talk Radio Europe bookshop. It's called Connection is a Song, coming up and coming out through the music of the 90s. And it's by Anna Doble, who we've had the pleasure of speaking with today. Anna, thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Yourself too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.